Welcome back to another video, Fuzzbutts. Today we're going to be learning a bit of hand stitching. So what you'll need is a piece of thread, material, and a needle. Thread your needle. Bit annoying, you can use a needle threader if you need to, but thread your needle. There we go. Now to tie a knot the easy way, there's a little trick that I learned. Put your thread like so on your needle, then you wrap it around 3 or 4 times, pinch all of that together and pull it all the way through to the end, and then it makes a knot. Pull that a bit tight and it'll make you a nice knot. Now I want to teach you guys a few different methods of stitching. First of all, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do a back stitch. This is a replacement or a change to a normal running stitch. Now a running stitch is one of those ones that just goes in and out and through like that. So that sort of stitch, that is called a running stitch. Now this stitch is probably one of the worst stitches. It's the easiest, but it's probably one of the worst stitches ever, I would have to say. The reason why is because you put a little bit of tension on that and it'll crease up your fabric like that. It's also very, very weak, so the second that you break one of these parts in the middle, the whole thing will come undone. That's not good. What you want to do is replace that with a back stitch. So I'll teach you how to do a back stitch. A back stitch is very similar to a running stitch. What you want to do is go through and then back. And now this is the part that differs from a running stitch. You actually go halfway between where you went through and where you came back through, and then you do another stitch through there. Oh, I tangled myself up. Give me a minute here. There we go. So you pull that one through, and then you do the exact same thing every time you go through. You go halfway between where you came out and where you went in. And then halfway between where you came out and where you went in. So it's like you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So between those two, through again. Now from the other side, it will look something like this. The reason why you want to replace every time you do a running stitch with this stitch is that it's stronger. When you pull on it, you're not going to end up with that problem of your fabric creasing up. What you guys want to do is don't start out practicing for your first time on fur because you can't see what you're doing. At least practice on a little piece of scrap material like this, something that's a bit firm. This is buckram, stuff that I use for eyes. It's a good material for practicing stitching on, just because it's nice and firm. You can see what you're doing and you don't end up dropping everything or getting all tangled up too much. So let me teach you guys now how to end a stitch. So this stitch what you want to do is go through the material just a little bit, just a little loop, and then you want to go through this loop, yeah, and then through the other loop that you just made. What that'll do is that'll make a nice little knot. And just for safety, I always like to go one more extra time. Tangled myself up. One more extra time through another loop. And that'll give you a nice solid knot on the other end. So let me cut this off and then I will show you an even more important stitch. The blanket stitch. So the blanket stitch is the most common stitch you'll probably end up using with fur. It's great for sewing up hands, sewing up any parts that are, you know, you can't get into a machine. Pretty much anywhere that's a bit hard to get to. This is great for both sealing your edges in and sort of overlocking them in one stitch. So what you do is you go through the material, you want to loop over through the material on the same side, not the opposite side. Yeah. And then you want to go through the loop. Let me get it right for you. So you have your loop. You want to then go through that loop. The first stitch will always be a little bit meh. Then you go through the same side again and through that loop. And then through the same side again and through that loop. And then through that same side again and through the loop. And then you just want to continue that through your entire length of fabric. And you'll be good. What I like to use for hand stitching is upholstery thread. Full upholstery thread, stuff that you'd use on leatherworking. It just is a lot stronger than heavy duty or just basic thread. If you're using basic thread, it can tend to break really easily. Now the way that you tell that you've got an upholstery thread is if you cannot break it with your hands, no matter how hard you pull, that's when you know you've got a good upholstery thread for hand stitching fur together. So now that you've sewed that up, and again I'll show you through that same side and through the loop, through that same side and through the loop. Now you might find that you are not very neat. That's okay, that's completely fine. But if it's your first time ever hand stitching, like I said, get a piece of scrap fabric and practice. Practice, practice, practice. It'll really help you out. Now from the other side, it'll look like the same as the first side. The only difference is, you know, like I said, the first stitch is a bit meh. After that, it will look all the same. Along the top edge of your fabric, so where your two pieces of fabric join together, you'll have these loops of fabric, loops of thread that go over the top. They just give it a bit of extra strength and hold the fabric together. From the other side, let me flip this inside out. You won't get too much, just because I haven't sewed that up properly. There we go. So yeah, you get a little bit of threading happening through there, but that's normal. With fur, if you're using fur, you really won't see that if the pile's longer than you know, 5mm. The back stitch, that is what the back stitch looks like on the inside. Same thing, but a bit tighter. Now what you can do is, you don't have to stick to any specific width with a stitch. With sewing long fur, really long fur together, you can do quite a wide stitch, so even double that distance. When you're sewing something that's really delicate and you will see the stitches, you want to do the stitches really tight, so really give them a good tug every time you finish that stitch up, and you want to go nice and tight. So for something that's really delicate, you want to really go small stitches, and those small stitches will help everything stay together nice and tight. This is how I stitch all the way around my hands. Whenever I'm making paws, I do really tight stitches all the way around. And when you're doing that stitch, it'll just keep everything really tight. Now to finish off, you do the same thing, just a little loop through. Put your thread through the loop, and then through the other loop. And it'll just give you a nice little knot. And again, just one little loop through. Just a little loop through to finish that off, and then you're all good. Now with sewing, especially with fur, does not need to be neat. Doesn't need to be neat at all, because you'll never see it. You might see it from the inside, but really, like, you'd never see it from the outside, because the fur will cover it up, really. It'll look good. Now let me just show you how to put fur together and sew that with a blanket stitch, and that'll be it. So we have two pieces of fur. Say you want to sew this side here to this side here. So what you want to do is, if you've got markings, line them all up, pin if you need to, and say you've got lots of bits of fur hanging out, you really want to push them in. Just push them in like that. Push those in. Push them all in, so that from the other side you won't be losing any fur. Once you've got that, grab your needle. You really got to hold. You got to have some firm hands for sewing fur. You really got to hold it tight. So pins are really good for helping out. And now with a blanket stitch, you just want to sew it up. Sometimes you can actually cheat, go really quick like this. Pull that out. So, like I said, from the other side, actually dig through until I can find those, until I can find these bits. So let's find them. There they are. So from the other side, through fur, you really have to dig pretty deep to find your stitches, and even then you can't really see them. So if you did the sewing with a white thread, you wouldn't see it against this white fur at all. If you have orange fur, use orange thread. If you've got black fur, use black thread. try and find threads that are the same colour or similar enough. Like if you've got white, cream thread can work. If you've got cream, white thread can work. If you've got yellow, white thread. If you've got a navy blue, black thread can work. If you've got, I don't know, any colour that's dark, you can use black threads or the same colour or a similar colour. If you've got light threads, light furs, try and use light thread or white. It'll just stop that from being seen from the other side. There you go. That is how you sew. That is how you sew fur. Hopefully you guys learned some new stitches. Hopefully that helps you guys out a bit. Please comment if you have any questions or want to know any other stitches. I can do another video. Bada bing, bada boom, have a nice day. Goodbye. Thanks for watching, Fuzzbutts. I plan to upload new content every fortnight, so please subscribe and ring that bell. And don't forget to absolutely obliterate that like button. Check out my website and Twitter in the description for all of my latest fursuit projects.